All right, excellent. Welcome to the Well AP exam preparation first session with GBRI, and we're thrilled that you're here. I went through this course about 6 months ago, and I found this course to be the best preparation course for my needs, and I passed the course, and I passed the exam a couple of weeks after finishing the course, and I found that the course was really quite well structured, and so now I'm presenting along with my colleagues the content of this course to help you pass the Well AP exam. So I hope this isn't timed, but while we're waiting a few others to join, let's introduce you to GBRI. And so GBRI is a privately owned online gamified education platform. And gamification is a big part of edX today and educational online education, with a mission to make sustainability resources affordable and available to everyone globally. Okay, so GBRI is located in New York City, and I'm sharing from Boston at the moment. And GBI has a presence around the world. And GBRI is a U.S. Green Business Council education partner, AIA education provider, and an education partner for various other organizations, including the UN SDGs, CHPS, and RI Energy Efficiency Council. So we believe our belief is that a truly sustainable future must also be an equitable future where every human is treated equally and fairly. And our mission is to make sustainability, health, and wellness available and affordable to everyone around the world. With hundreds of sustainability, with hundreds of sustainability courses surrounding the topics of energy, water, LEED, net zero buildings, green schools, energy modeling, daylighting, BIM, health, and wellness, to name a few. The Learning Hub at GBRI is your one-stop shop for all sustainability education needs. So let's talk about getting started with week one. I see we have a chat, so presentation mode. Okay, that's the suggestion. There is a timing on this, so that I didn't expect that, but I think we could probably just continue to go forward. I don't think we need to worry about the timing right now. All right, so let's talk about today's agenda, and when we do that, I'm going to you can see the agenda slide here. Let me first introduce myself to attendees. So my name is Doug Leifer. I'm based in Boston, and I'm a civil and environmental engineer. And I have over 25 years of consulting, teaching, and engineering experience. My main career right now is teaching and education and engineering. And I have a master's degree in civil and environmental engineering, and I'm pursuing a doctorate degree at Tufts University in Boston, which should be finished next year, also in civil and environmental engineering. And so in addition to consulting, education has been a second career for me. And my specialties are water, air, and noise. And so the focus of my consulting experience has to do with air pollution monitoring and mitigation, and noise pollution monitoring and mitigation. And also I have experience in the water quality sector too. So that's just a little bit about me, and I look forward to learning about the group's experience when we get a little bit deeper into the presentation. Let's talk about our agenda for today. So our agenda for today is to discuss the 10 things that you need to know for exam preparation for the Well AP version 2 exam, which is the current version. And then we'll talk about study groups and how GBRI can set you up in a study group. And I found a study group to be very important. There are others on this call that I was in a study group with, and those study groups are a way to keep each other motivated and responsible and on point and most importantly on schedule to complete the course and be prepared for the exam. We'll present a roadmap as to how you can get through the course and then get to the exam and finish and complete the exam and pass the exam. And then we'll talk a little bit about GBRI's Certified Well Ambassador programs, and then what you can expect for homework. One of the questions that had come up when I took this course was, what do we need to do for homework? What are the expectations for assignments outside of class? So we'll talk about that today too. So I don't want to belabor this, briefly go over this again. We'll talk about 10 things you need to know to prepare for the exam. And I'll discuss a bit about the study groups that GBRI will facilitate for you, which I found to be very useful, and I think you will too. And then a roadmap to completing the course and then sitting for the exam and being successful on the exam. And then a few words about GBRI Certified Well Ambassador program, and then expectations about homework, which I think is interesting to understand that there is going to be some homework involved in the course for you to be successful. And I can share with you what I found to be most useful in doing homework, and perhaps Carolina could do the same thing as well. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, 10 things you should know. So we're excited you've chosen to pursue well-accredited professional credential, and this is a credential that currently is held by over 19,000 people from more than 113 countries around the world. And this group is leading a global movement to transform buildings, organizations, and communities in ways that help people thrive. Let's go to slide 10, the next slide. Let's talk about what is the WELL AP credential, accredited professional credential. And so next slide. The credential, WELL-P credential denotes expertise in the WELL building standard, currently version 2, and a commitment to creating spaces that advance health and well-being for our occupants. And what should a WELL-P know? WELL AP is an individual who possesses knowledge and skills necessary to support the WELL certification process, including participating in the design and development process, supporting and encouraging integrated design, managing the application and certification process, and providing advocacy and education for the adoption of WELL. Next slide. So what do you need to be qualified for or eligible for to become a WELL accredited professional? So the requirements are fairly straightforward. Next slide. You only need to be 18 years or older. However, WELL project experience is recommended, but not a requirement. As for me and my background, most of my background is environmental engineering, as you heard me mention earlier. So not so much on the building side or the BIM side or architectural side, but I felt that it was a good fit for my needs and for my requirements in my career, and I was able to understand the material fairly simply, even though I don't have a depth of expertise in LEED or LEED certification, but I do have a LEED Green Associate credential. So generally, the project experience recommended but not required. Let's go to the next slide. What about the fees? Let's talk about the fees for the exam, which I think are very reasonable fees. The current fee to sit for the exam is $299 or $99 for students, but there are volume discounts. And so the volume discounts for organizations that wish to pursue multiple certifications of WELL APs in your organization with the International Well Building Institute offers group discount pricing options, which you see here. And this is a slide from IWBI, which was shared with us previously. So there is an advantage in a volume discount. What's the exam format? This is the next slide. So the exam format is computer-based, and I think that's very advantageous. So let's go back to the prior slide. Thank you. It's similar to if you've taken the LEED Green Associate exam, AP or other credentials. The exam is similar to the same format as those. It's a computer-based exam, and you take it at Prometric. So there is likely to be a Prometric center near you within driving distance. and you register with Prometric for the exam and report to the testing center and take the exam at the Prometric testing center. Let's go to the next slide. You can take it remotely through your home office through an online Prometric testing platform. And that's no additional charge for that. However, even though it sounds like an interesting opportunity, we heard from some of our past students that it was not the best experience, especially technology and the internet don't always cooperate, as you can see what we have to do today. So there's always a potential for some sort of a glitch, which you certainly don't want to create stress while you're taking the exam. So if you're looking to do the remote online testing platform from home, I would suggest you do some research and a few system tests of your computer and monitor, camera, microphone, and other hardware. But the Prometric testing center seems to be the simplest way to arrange this, taking the test at a center. So the tests you're allowed 2.5 hours. It's a timed test for the exam, and each question is multiple choice, and there are 115 questions. And the language for the exam, primary language for the exam, is in English. The question and answer options, multiple choice, and I believe there were typically four choices for each question. There may have been a few questions that had two choices. I can't recall at the moment. The answer options are displayed on the screen, and the computer records your response and times your exam. So you're able to change your answers, go back and flag questions for later review, skip questions if you wish, but you still need to finish the exam within the allocated 2.5 hours. I recall that I flagged 10 questions. So about 10% of the exam questions I flagged. And what you can do is you can rule out with a special click tool on the screen at the Prometric Center. If you have 4 answers to a multiple choice question and you feel that 2 of the answers given are absolutely not correct, or you don't feel they're correct, and then you're trying to decide between 2 other answers that either of them may be the answer, you can flag the 2, cross out the 2 that you don't feel are appropriate answers, and then go back and at the end of the exam and make a decision between the 2 remaining questions. And I did that for 10 questions on the exam, and I found that to be useful. The exam has both scored and unscored items. You won't know the difference in the questions being scored or unscored. There's no way to tell which are unscored. So all items are delivered randomly throughout the exam, and you're not informed of the status, whether the question is scored or unscored. So you need to respond to all of the questions on the exam. Let's go to the next slide. What do you need to pass? You need 170 points or higher. The exam is actually scored between 125 and 200. So you need to earn 170 points or higher to pass and earn the WELL AP certification. And you will know immediately after you complete the test online if you received a passing score. And your exam score will be displayed on the screen at the end of the exam, and then you'll receive a printed report of the results. And I got them through email, not from the test center staff. So that comes by email, same day actually. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. And this talks about the exam reference documents. So you're not allowed to bring any documents into the exam. And are we still on point here with the screen? Yeah, we are. Okay. You're not allowed to bring any documentation into the exam with you, but there are reference documentations. And what slide are we on now, Felicia? I think we're skipping ahead here. I want to go back to slide 24. Yeah, that's right, with the 3 documents. That's correct. Okay, let's stay on this slide. So the exam itself is based on these documents. So let's talk about these documents. The first one is the actual well building standard version 2 with a an addenda for Q4 2020. So there's a question from Laura. If we fail the exam, do we get a retake? What is the policy, Felicia, with GBRI for a retake?
So with us, we do have the guarantee that if you fail the exam, we will reimburse you for the exam prep material costs. That is not something that we've ever had to do. However, through IWBI directly, if you fail the exam, you only have one chance to take it, and then you have to repay for your next exam. So really, you get one chance when you pay through IWBI to actually take and pass that exam.
Thanks for answering that. Okay, so the exam's based on these documents, the well building standard itself, and there are beta features in this version that are not assessed for the exam. And then the well certification guidebook with a Q3, Q4 2020 addenda, but only the processes related to well version 2 are assessed. And then lastly, the well portfolio guidebook with Q4 2020 agenda. So you will need to, in addition to completing the 5-week course with GBRI, you will need to refer to these reference documents in your studies and in your homework as you prepare for the exam. Let's go to the next slide. So the exam covers knowledge domains, and there are 11. In V1 of the exam, I believe it was 7 or 8, if I'm not mistaken, but now there are 11. And there is an advantage, though, for V2 versus V1 in actual. I did take the V1 test several years ago, and I found that the V2 test was actually, version 2 of the well standard test was actually much more user-friendly, and was able to pass that after completing the 5-week course with GBRI. So let's talk about the knowledge domains. The next slide is slide 26, and these reflect the well building standard concept and certification process. So let's go to actual slide 27 is a graphic that shows the 11 knowledge domains. Great, excellent. So the following outline, this graphic is a general description of the exam content areas. What will you be tested on in the well AP exam? You'll be tested on your knowledge of these 11 knowledge domains, and these reflect your knowledge of the well building standards, concepts, and certification process. So you see there's a well certification domain in addition to understanding conceptual knowledge for air, water, light, material, sound, so on and so forth. You actually need to understand the well certification process itself. We have a question from Becky. Where do we purchase exam prep materials? And I think that's something maybe Felicia could talk about as to what's included when you register for the course, and you already sent a link, correct?
I did send a link, and if you want, at the end of the session, before we wrap things up, I can go over everything that'll be included as part of this session. That way everybody is able to ask any questions that they may have, and then we can share that link again at the end.
Terrific. Thank you. Great. All right. So we're back on talking about the knowledge domains. I think it keeps going back to, we want to go to slide 27. Excellent. Okay. All right. So let's go to slide 28. And here you see a graphic that shows the number of questions on the exam that come from each domain. So the air domain has 11 questions on the exam, the water domain 9, and so on. And then the well certification has the most, which is 12. So it's important to, once you have knowledge of the 10 domains shown here, to also have knowledge and depth of knowledge in the certification process itself to pass the exam. So this adds up to a total of 115 questions. And if you recall from a few slides ago, you're scored between 125 and 200 points, with a passing score of 170 required to pass the exam. Let's go to the next slide. And this next section is going to talk about what are the types of questions that you would see. Well, I mentioned earlier that they're multiple choice, and let's go to slide 30. And there are 3 levels of cognition that you need to be aware of to pass this exam. And the exam assesses you at these 3 cognitive levels. What is your recall of the well building standard concepts and domains? And then there's an application, thank you, which includes a problem or a scenario in which you'll apply the well building standard concepts to solve a problem. Recall is more factual and foundational. And then lastly, there's analysis, which breaks a problem down into components. So recall items assess the candidate's ability to recall factual material, foundational knowledge that's presented in a similar context to the exam references, which I showed you earlier. Applications are items that provide the exam taker with a novel problem or a scenario or project, essentially, that the candidate can solve using familiar principles or procedures described in the exam references. And then the analysis items are assess the candidate's ability to break the problem down into components and create a solution. So the test candidate must not only recognize different elements of the problem, but also evaluate the relationship or interactions of these elements. And that's something called synergies, which I think you'll see a bit more about today, synergies between domains. So for example, a synergy would be a project solution or a design that would satisfy more than one domain, perhaps even several, as the project moves forward in its well certification process. So let's go to the next slide. There is a project-based scenario, and let's go ahead to the final one. And I'll talk about what the project scenario was on my exam in a minute, but the exam will feature a short project scenario, and some exam questions will require you to refer to that scenario, and the project scenario will not be published ahead of the new launch of the exam, so you won't know what the scenario will be. The questions will provide you with a novel problem or a scenario to solve using familiar principles or procedures described in the exam references. So the WELL AP exam has 2 embedded documents. Well, before I talk about that, I'll recall that on my exam, the scenario was a site, a building that was being renovated or remodeled, and the site of the building was in China, and the building was being upgraded for higher occupancy and a slight change of usage in the building itself. And so this involved changes in lighting, in ventilation, and I believe there was also a nourishment section too. More employees in the building post-renovation would require some sort of a cafeteria or cafe space for employees. So there were 3 or 4 domains of the 11 domains that needed to be addressed in this project scenario. And there were some synergies between domains too. So the project was presented to me in the exam, and I believe there were about 7 or 8 questions that were directly related to that project. So it's important to read the project scenario carefully and reread it, I would think. It would be helpful, and then answer the questions related to that project scenario on the exam. And I only recall having 1 project on the exam. I'm not sure if there's more than 1, but it's responsible for multiple questions and synergies. And it's important to have a very solid understanding of that project scenario. Okay, let's talk about embedded documents. So the exam has 2 embedded documents that exam takers can reference throughout the exam. And these are pop-up PDFs. If you're taking the exam with Prometric, let's hold that slide for now, Felicia. If you're taking the exam with Prometric, these are PDFs that pop up on demand, so you can click and display them. And you can do that at any point during the exam. And one embedded document includes the project scenario, which is relevant to answer several exam questions, and you won't see that until you actually report for the exam. So the embedded content, okay, let's, I'm not on that yet, not on the concepts and features yet. So some content from WELL version 2 and guidebooks is available to you during the exam, and that's a PDF document. And we provide this document beforehand. GBRI provides it for you in the Get to Know the New WELL AP exam guide. And it includes all feature names and numbers, thresholds, which I think are very valuable to have, since you won't need to memorize thresholds for air and water. For example, for certain contaminants in water or certain compounds in air, you will need to know thresholds, health-based risk thresholds, and those values are very difficult to memorize. You don't need to memorize them. They're in the embedded document. And filtration levels like MERV 11 or 13 are also tabulated, as are the different award standards for silver, gold, bronze, and platinum. So the guide, the embedded document, is really important in this exam. And that's something that I did not have access to in version 1 when I took the exam several years ago. Those had to be memorized. So it's much more user-friendly. All right, let's go to the next slide, which actually shows the embedded document. So you might want to blow, can you blow this up, Felicia? Does that make this zoom in on this? That would be great. That's perfect. Great. Okay, so this is one of the embedded document PDF that you can call on demand during the exam. And you have thresholds for particulate matter. So that's PM 2.5 and PM 10, and those are the aerodynamic diameters of those particles. So the thresholds you see here, 15 micrograms, 50 micrograms per cubic meter, and so on and so forth. You don't have to memorize those. You will see them when you read through the exam preparation documents, and you'll see them next week in the air quality domain presentation that I'll be presenting as well. But you don't need to memorize them. You do need to understand them and what the difference is, and what these definitions are of PM 2.5 and PM 2.10. But the values and thresholds are on demand, available to you on the exam now with the embedded content. And so if you look to the left, you'll see another part of the embedded content. Content is actually the different domain requirements that you'll see for air, water, nourishment, and others, and they're all numbered. And so some of these are important to know in the exam too, and so you won't have to remember or recall the actual number of those concepts. And so on the right, you see here bronze, silver, gold, and platinum levels of WELL certification, and how many points that a project can earn per concept. And the 40, 50, 60, 80 total points is actually on the exam. And so you don't need to remember or memorize those. You can call up the PDF embedded content and refer to this and answer that particular question and get it correct. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So this is really asking, is our friend from the office, right? Is the credential right for you? So let me talk to you a little bit about, let's hold that slide right here, Felicia. Why did I pursue the WELL AP credential? Well, my area of focus has changed from environmental engineering to environmental health in the last 8 or 9 years. And rather than getting a LEED certification like a LEED AP, which is really more for building and architect and construction trades, I felt that a WELL AP credential was more relevant to my area of study. So that's why I pursued this, and also a WELL faculty certification too. So I think if you take a look at, is this the right certification for you? Ask some questions. Do you consider yourself a leader in your industry? Are you committed to placing health and wellness at the center of building design and performance? The WELL AP credential may be right for you. And there were thousands of employers investing in their employees with WELL AP sponsorship. And that would be operations directors, sustainability managers, interior designers, HR, architects, head of real estate, partners, managers, VPs, students, ecologists, professors, marketing managers, civil engineers, to name quite a few, urban designers, graduate students, real estate brokers, engineers and architects, CEOs, the list goes on, green building specialists, facilities managers, mechanical engineers, directors of sustainability. We could go down the list, and WELL APs span almost every job function and industry as health, safety, and well-being become increasingly important and relevant. Let's go to the next slide. I'll talk about the global health and wellness industry. This is a huge market, a $4.2 trillion market. And the WELL AP credential is an entry into this market. And I found it to be an entry into this market on the commercial side for me. Mostly I've been on the academic and consulting side prior. So it was the right certification for me. I'm sure it'll be the right certification for you as well. And let's talk about the learner resources. These are resources that you will be provided access to. I think Felicia put the link in the chat. And is the link that you put in the chat for these resources, Felicia?
Yes, so for those who have already paid and signed up for the session, this is all included in there, and that will be listed on that link as well.
Excellent. Okay. So the first guide is Get to Know the New WELL AP Exam. And I think that's a valuable guide to understand how the exam is structured, other than what we've been talking about today, and what you can expect on the exam and how the format of the exam is presented to you at Prometric. The second in the middle is the WELL AP Candidate Handbook, which is worth reading through carefully before you register and sit for the exam. And then the third is the roadmap to the exam. So GBRI has outlined a roadmap to success. It worked for me. It worked for Carolina, who's on this call, and it worked for thousands of others that have taken this course. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that roadmap is and what's your pathway to success through this course and then on the exam. So let's get on to item 2 and 3. Well, we've been talking about 10 things for the last 20 minutes. So now we're moving on to items 2 and 3, study groups and roadmaps. Yeah, then exam prep resources. So let's go on to what you will need. So we have the slide. Okay, very good. Let's hold on to this slide. So if you're interested in learning more about earning your WELL AP credential, we offer comprehensive packages, includes a WELL study guide, video modules and practice questions, mock exams, and a support group on WhatsApp that I found to be useful. And I'm still on that support group on WhatsApp. So what do you need for the preparation for the exam? The 3 guidebooks that I just mentioned in the last slide. And then you will get access to the live sessions that are seeing presented today. They're the 5 weeks of live sessions. And what I found to be incredibly important and really one of the keys to passing the exam was the 400 plus practice questions across the 11 domains. So each of the domains has a practice exam at the end of your study path when you take the live course with us and then read through the guide materials. And there are about 20 to 30 questions in multiple choice format, very similar to the WELL AP exam, for a total of 400 practice questions across the 11 domains. So my strategy was to attend these lectures, do some of the reading in the exam prep materials, and then take the practice exam for each of the domains as they were presented to me, and the material was fresh in my mind until I was able to pass all of those practice exam with a perfect score. And then at the end of the course, obviously there's going to be some time between when you complete the course with GBRI and when you actually sit for the exam. I had about a 2-week, no more than that for me. It was about a 2-week period where I just used that time to review, to study, to reread, and then took my 3 simulated mock exams, which GBRI provides access to for enrollees in the course. And then you want to strive to get a 90% on those 3 simulated mock exams. And when you've done that, then you're ready to sit for the exam and pass the exam successfully. So let's go on to the next slide. The course covers 5 weeks, and here you have a testimonial from a course taker saying that this is a good review course covering specifics of the WELL standard and certification process at a high level, comprehensive coverage detailing 7 concepts. So that's probably from version 1. As I mentioned to you, there were 7 concepts in version 1, and version 2 is expanded to 11, but you get access to the embedded PDF content, which you do not have in version 1 in the 7 concepts. So we'll cover all 11 domains in 5 weeks in the course. And here are some more customer testimonials too from successful exam passers who have positive things to say about their experience with the exam. And another one, this young woman who talks about, who's now a WELL AP, who talks about the score, and she had an excellent score, 192 out of 200. That's terrific on her first attempt. And so, again, I think a lot of these testimonials mirror what I said a few minutes ago, is that the mock exams, the course structure itself, the pace of the course, the live sessions that you get, the material and the content, the guidebooks that we discussed a few minutes ago, the 3 guidebooks, and then the domain practice exams, as well as the 3 mock exams. That's the pathway to success on the WELL AP exam that worked very well for these testimonial folks, as well as for me too. Okay, so what's the journey? This slide shows you your journey. If you've decided to take the exam, and you probably have at this point, if you're on the call and you've been thinking seriously about it, here's the high-level roadmap. Register, create an account, submit your payment, and that's with Prometric. And then prepare using our resources, GBRI exam core resources and IWBI resources, which are shared with us. And then schedule your exam, and we're advocating that you take it at a Prometric testing center. If you need to take it at home, you can do that. But again, you want to make absolutely sure that all of your hardware is working well before you do that. I took it at a Prometric center, which is very convenient to do that too. And then take the exam, pass the exam, hopefully with flying colors, and receive your credential, your WELL AP credential, and start applying what you've learned. So here's the roadmap that we talked about in the agenda for today. The 10 things that you need to know, we're talking about that today. We've been discussing those. And then basically that is become familiar with the exam, the prep process, and the resources that we provide. Find a study buddy. And that's something that we facilitate with GBRI for you in a WhatsApp group. So we will put together a WhatsApp. There's also a website too that you can find others that are enrolled in the course on the website and connect with them. But finding a study buddy to keep each other accountable, I think, is a very good way to check in. Even if you're just sending a message to a study buddy saying, I just finished the air domain practice test and got 100%. How did you do? Or give each other support and encouragement, and also questions. The second week is actually getting into some concepts then. I'll be presenting the air and water concepts next week, and those are areas of expertise of mine. And then we'll talk about WELL certification. That's one of the domains too. So we'll actually be covering 3 domains next week live. And one of them is the WELL certification process, from which there are a dozen questions actually on the exam. And then I think, if you recall, air and water have about 9 or 11. So that's another 20 questions. So next week, we're going to be covering about 32 questions or so of the exam, and that's about a quarter of the exam in our week 2 module. And then we get into week 3, which is nourishment, light, and movement, and 4 is thermal comfort, sound, materials, and then the 5th week is mind, community concepts and practice questions, and then talking about mock exams 1, 2, and 3. And Carolina, which weeks are you presenting live?
I actually have to check on that.
Okay.
But I think
All right.
it's actually week 3 and 4.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So you can see that at the end of each week, there are practice questions. So if we cover three, we will be covering three concepts next week. I would advise that at the end of the live session, you look at the material, the training guides and the resource guides, and then take the practice quizzes for each of those three domains that'll be covered next week. And do the same thing in weeks 3, 4, and 5. And then at the end of the 5 weeks, then you're ready to do take the mock exams, and those are much more comprehensive, and there are 3 different versions of those, and strive to get a 90% on those mock exams. And you can retake them as many times as you want, as well as the practice quizzes. Okay, the exam prep methodology. So we can do custom exam prep. I think for this group that you're attending today is really more about the 5-week program where we're presenting live. And then I think there could be some on-demand content available, if I'm not mistaken, for this particular group, but there'll be live presentations for the next several weeks until the course is done, right? Okay, so let's skip over this and go on to slide. What slide is this real world example slide that you're on?
51.
Yeah, I think we need to, okay, let's talk about this, right? So the exam itself, we'll cover, as you prep for the exam, there'll be a scenario, a project scenario, okay? That'll be the real world example. There'll be verification method questions about how projects are actually verified, whether that's done by an architect or an engineer or an owner's representative. There'll be some questions about the well core guidance, and then practice questions and mock exams presented throughout our prep course. So we will follow this methodology in the live presentation course, right? Next slide is 52. And we will cover the 11 domains that you see here. And next week will be air and water, and well certification will be discussed next week. And then the other remaining domains will be discussed and reviewed and presented over the ensuing 5-week period. Okay, so I think we want to skip ahead. And I think this is really more about GBRI's Community Center, correct? And Felicia, are you familiar with this site?
So this is but it is not a real site yet. This is a concept idea.
Okay.
So I am slightly familiar with it, but it is not something that is completely set in stone yet. And I think the idea of us just using this is just to kind of help folks remember how the different well concepts are kind of tied into a building project. So
excellent. All right, well, let's go to the next slide and take a little deeper dive on this to see how there are synergies between different concepts in a building or a project. So here we see renderings that allow you to see various elements inside the space of the drawing. So we could use this project as a reference throughout the exam prep, which we will. And we say our project, this is the project we'll be referring to. And I encourage you to visualize it when we mention it as our project throughout the course. And this will help you learn and understand concepts in the context of a project that you will remember and apply, just not for the exam, but also for beyond the exam. So let's just take a quick look at this. If we look at on the right, we have open corridors, upper right, working as a buffer, protecting from harsh sun, strong winds and rains, while allowing sunlight. So the domain that would covered here would be lighting and probably movement too, open corridors. So there's a couple of synergies here. And then we have a green roof below that, reduce urban heat island effect. So that would be a domain of thermal comfort. Promotes biodiversity, and that would be another another domain that we would synergize with here. And reduce heat transfer through the roof, cooling load, and then you have stormwater management. So that would be the water domain. So you can see certain features and design features might reach across several different domains in the well building standard. And so we talk about synergies a lot. On the exam, you'll be tested on what synergies exist for certain design parameters or construction plans for a building, and how could they meet well and gain points towards the building's well certification process, whether it's gold, silver, or platinum, or bronze, for example. And often synergies can provide multiple points over multiple domains that a project would earn. And your job as a well AP is to understand what those synergies are and which domains they can be taken from and scored from. And also, the well AP can act as a guide for the owner or the engineer or the project team as to how to maximize points for a well certification process. So you'll see in the course, you'll see this project again as a model that we will use to discuss different domains and how any synergies can occur between domains, and how the actual well AP, the well standard, well building standard applies to building and construction. Okay, so let's skip ahead. We've already seen this. And I think we've seen this slide too about the question types. So I don't need to talk about that again. All right, so let's look at domain 11, which is the well certification and well portfolio domain. So what do you need to understand with well certification? Well, the well AP candidate that's sitting for the exam needs to understand the registration process. How does a project become registered for well certification? And that's something that we will discuss next week in the live session. What are the eligibility criteria for the project? What are the timelines and processes for certification and performance verification by a third party that the project meets the well building standard and can be scored and ranked and given well certification? And then roles and responsibilities are important to understand too of the project team members, whether it's the owner, the administrator, the well AP. All of those are stakeholders in a project, and so those roles and responsibilities, you need to understand these in the well certification process. Who can sign off, for example, who can conduct performance verifications, who can authorize different processes in the project's certification process. And then knowledge of the well building standard, V2, scoring levels and point thresholds. I think we talked about that earlier with the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And that's something that's on the embedded content, which is useful for the exam, excuse me. Adherence path, alternative adherence paths. That's something that you'll hear about next week. These can be proposed to for a well certification in a project rather than some of the more established adherence paths and equivalencies, and they can be approved and given scores for innovation. And then pre-certification and recertification process and timelines that are required for these. Synergies, we've discussed a lot today between features and domains, and then pathways for award of innovative concepts or innovative design. You also need to have skill in managing the documentation process, including submissions using the Well digital platform, and understand how a project is submitted using that platform, coordinating certification processes with the stakeholders, managing post-certification requirements, whether it's every 2 years or beyond, and recommending curative actions which might be needed for non-passing performance verifications. And then lastly, assessing project compliance with well features, scoring thresholds. So this is a well AP needs to have knowledge of all of these and be skilled in these domain specifications. The question is, do projects that are certified with V1 required to upgrade to V2? I can't remember that particular response. Carolina, do you know that?
No, actually, once it's been certified, you don't have to update it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, and well portfolio. So that was part of the last slide. The candidate for the Will AP exam needs to have knowledge of the portfolio scope and eligibility, scales of documentation and the review process, and then factors that influence the score. So we'll discuss this in the live session next week. So let's talk about what's next for you, if assuming you're going forward with this live course. And next slide, what's going to be coming up? Well, as I said, before we talk about what the homework requirements are, what's next is that next week we will talk about WELL certification in depth. So the last two slides that I've just presented briefly will be discussed in detail. And so you'll have understanding of the WELL certification process. And I think personally it's worth reviewing it at the end of the 5-week course too, so that your concepts that you learn throughout the course will become a little bit more familiar with you. And then it's a good summation of the course to review the WELL certification process after week 5. And next week we'll talk about that, as well as the air and water domains in depth. So we'll do a deep dive on those. So what homework can you expect to be not assigned, but to take on during this course? Well, number one is familiarize yourself with the course content, and that's through the slide presentations and the discussions that we have live in our GBRI course presentation, as well as the 3 guidebooks that you saw presented earlier, which could be accessed through a link for the paid course. Get a study buddy, and we can connect you on WhatsApp with a study buddy for the course, and it doesn't matter as long as you can communicate with each other on WhatsApp. It doesn't matter if you're in the same geography or not. It's good for accountability and just generally checking in to see how you're doing. And then review the materials before you come to the next class. So I would suggest that if you're going to be continuing this course in the next week, that you look at the WELL certification process, the air and water domain slides and content before we meet next Thursday, so that there'll be at least some more familiarity with terminology if you're not already familiar with the terminology. And I think that probably, if you're like me, working in this field already, you may have specific knowledge of some of the domains already, like mine is air and water and noise and sound. Yours may be different, but it's familiar. It's useful to familiarize yourself with the materials before coming to the next class. But the WELL certification process may be unfamiliar to you, so it would be worth looking at that before coming into the week 2 course. Okay, so we've seen the roadmap, and let's go on to the Wellness Ambassador. So this is something that GBRI offers, the Wellness Ambassador program. Felicia, can you talk a little bit about this?
We do have a program which is a set of climate change related courses, and essentially as individuals go through and complete these different sets of courses, they earn different levels of badges. And so our first badge here is our Trailblazer badge. That is one that is actually available for free to anyone who is wanting to earn that. And then from there, we do have our level 2, 3, and 4 badges. And so each badge is made up of a set of different climate change related courses. And so as you go through, you will be learning maybe new things that you didn't already know, or just maybe touching up on some of the things that you already did know. But these are badges that can be shared socially, and so that's something that we find nowadays is really important. Whenever you see somebody has shared something on social media, it draws more attention to that. And so we're really hoping that this is something that as we progress through the year will continue to take off. But really, this is just something that is rewarding those who are going through. They may be just completing their CE hours, but as they're completing their CE hours, they're also able to earn this badge as well. So
great, thanks, Felicia. Sure, yeah. So let's stay on this slide. So if you're a lead or AIA or WELL professional, there are CE hours, continuing ed hours required for maintenance of those certifications, and GBRI offers curated courses specific to your needs, or packets of CE hours that you need, bundles, I should say, that will help you maintain the certification annually. And in addition to the climate change ambassador certification that Felicia just talked about too. So yes, you can share your certifications on social media. And if you looked at my LinkedIn profile, which maybe you did, I encourage you to link in with me. I have the Well AP badge and also the Well AP faculty designation on there too. And I think that's, for me, that's been very important to network with other professionals in those areas of expertise. And I'm proud to display those in LinkedIn on my social media platform. Okay, so I believe this is our last slide. And so we hope that if you've already registered, terrific. We look forward to seeing you through the ensuing 5 weeks and in our live courses presented by me and Carolina and also Jesslyn Varghese as well. And if you haven't officially registered, and this has just been a trial class for you today to see if this program is right for you, then I would encourage you to register, and you'll find that it's a roadmap to success to get you to passing the exam on your first try, which is something that I benefited from after taking this course as a student, just like you, and I did well on the exam and passed, and I felt it was a very worthwhile effort and investment of my time. And so now I'm happy to and proud to give back to try to help you get through the material and master the material so that you can pass the AP exam when you register for it. So thank you for joining us today, and we hope you will take the next step by registering. And I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want to ask me any questions about my pathway or the exam or my experience on the exam or my experience with the GBRI course, I'd be happy to answer questions, and or I could turn it over to Felicia or Carolina if they want to add any comment or make any answer any questions that you might have specific to them. Thank you.
Yeah, so just while we wait for some questions to come in, Doug, I was just going to kind of go over, this is, if I know we have some people that have already registered, some people that are still on the fence. And so if you do decide to go through and register, this is the material that you would be provided access to. Everybody who is part of this January session will be accessing the material from this same page. And so you can see here we have some information about our instructors and then also about what is included. And so I know that Doug did mention that briefly. You would receive all of the IWBI core study resources, as well as the 6 live sessions that are taught by our Well AP and Well faculty. And then all of this will include on-demand access so that if you are not able to attend a live session, you do have that option to catch up on demand. And then as Doug mentioned, you have practice questions with answer explanations for each of the different well concepts. So as you go through the weekly session, whether you're watching it live or on demand, you'll always want to go through afterwards and just make sure that you are really grasping those concepts and testing your knowledge. And then towards the end of the sessions, we start recommending that you take your practice exams or your mock exams. And we do have these structured to where they are timed so that it is giving you practice like the actual exam. And then we do have our roadmap with some tips and techniques that we have come up with. The study group that Doug mentioned, we do have one that is available through WhatsApp. And for those that are not available on WhatsApp, we do have one that is just on our website as well. I don't think that one is as active as the WhatsApp group, but we would encourage you to join whichever you feel most comfortable with. And then, of course, with our live sessions, you do always receive instructor and peer study support. And so that's just one of the things that kind of goes along with our study group. Everybody in the group is always very supportive and encouraging of each other. And so that's something that I think has really helped a lot of folks. And then we do guarantee, thus far we've had many people go through our exam prep material, and thus far we have not had anybody who has not passed their exam. So we do guarantee that if you go through and you follow our roadmap, we'll pass the exam. So we are confident in that, and we do offer a money back guarantee if you were not to pass the exam. But this is here, you can see where all of the material is listed for the sessions. We have our live Zoom links, our study group, roadmap, and then, you know, all of the resources and quizzes. And so this is just, you know, what you could expect to see once you sign up and what you would have access to. If anybody had any questions for Doug, any of the information he went over today, or any of the any information that we went over on our website, please feel free. You can enter them in the chat, or you can always unmute yourself if you feel comfortable. Okay, well, if you want, Doug, we can start the Kahoot, and then maybe people will have some questions after
right.
that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's can you launch that?
Yes, I can. Can y'all still see my screen? Y'all see the are y'all able to see the Kahoot on my screen by chance?
I can see it.
All right, perfect. So we
There's
are
loading.
going. Oh, go ahead.
Adam, you had a comment?
Well, just it says loading. Is that
Okay.
correct?
That is correct. Yes, it is still loading.
Okay,
Perfect.
good stuff.
Is everybody familiar with Kahoot? If you're not, it's an online gamified platform where you answer questions as quickly as you can, and those that get the right answer the quickest get the most points. So it's a bit of a competition. There's no prize here today, but you know, this potentially is your study group, so you're kind of assessing, you know, each other's abilities in these areas. But there's a couple of basic questions that we've put together. Thank you, Felicia. And you need to log in here on your you do this on your smartphone, correct? You can scan the QR code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can scan the QR code on your smartphone. You can also enter, there's a website, you can enter this on your mobile device or even on your computer. So if you just want to enter kahoot.it, and then this will be your game pin that you can enter that will let you join in on the game. This is just all for fun. We just put 3 simple questions together today, so no pressure. We're not going to put y'all through the ringer or anything, but just to kind of give you all the hang of it.
Right, and the reason we do this is because some of the course content is actually gamified using Kahoot as well, and it's a good forum in which everybody can participate, and it's fun too. So we have a question, or you have 4 people, and I'm still connecting myself.
And then I did see a question come through the chat about the WhatsApp study group. So yes, once you register for the live session, everything that is available here on this course page is essentially then unlocked. And so before you purchase, you may go through and you may see that there is a lock icon there. You're not able to access it. Once you've signed up, that will all become unlocked, and you can see this is where you can join our study group. So once you click here, it'll have the link that you need to join the WhatsApp group.
Okay.
7. Okay, and if you're not able to join, we know sometimes there's some technical issues. Please feel free to enter your questions or answers into the chat. So we'll also be checking there as well. I think, let's see, 2. We're just missing a couple of people. I'll go ahead and enter this in the chat. That way they can join
Great.
maybe a little bit later if they're having issues.
Give this another shot. Okay, I made it.
Okay. Finally on. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start. I included that the information in the chat. So if you're wanting to join, just go ahead and join anytime. Okay, so the first one, we're just gonna enter one word that comes to your mind whenever you think of the word well. Be anything. And this first question is just a test question, so it's not gonna give anybody any points, but just to kind of give you an idea of how the system works. All right, and so we have health here as our biggest one, so that means that was the most popular answer that was answered there, along with mindful and good. So thank y'all for answering those. All right, so this isn't something we necessarily talked about today, but I think this is kind of something well complements LEED, BRAM, and other green building rating systems. True or false? Okay, so true. And we have Carlos in the lead.
Everybody got that right, huh? Is that right? Great.
All right, and then this is going to be the last question. We just did a short 3-question Kahoot. So this is the last one here. What percent of time do people spend indoors? Is it 50%, 80%, 70%, or 90%? All right, so we had majority that said 90%. All right, our third place contestant is RS. Faro second place, and our first place contestant is Carlos.
Very good.
So good job. Doug was a runner-up, and so was Y. So good job. Thank you all for participating. This is just to give you a test. As the sessions go on, we'll add more questions just so that it's a little bit more challenging. But thank y'all for playing, and I think we can share the link to the podium. Okay, and I did see, Doug, we had some questions coming through.
Okay, sure.
Let's see. So we had someone asking, how is this different from just reading the free available material as provided by Well? I think that's a great question. Doug, I don't know if you
Well,
want
let me tell you, I looked at another couple of courses before I enrolled in GBRI's course. And so what was I looking for? I was looking for something that, you know, I could do in a couple of weeks, right? And I really wasn't sure I wanted to commit to, there was a course taught live in Boston that was 2 4-hour days. So I would have had to have commuted into Boston. You know, I'm 25 miles out of the city. So that means commuting, parking, rush hour, right? I'm a teacher by profession right now, so I like live classroom, but I also like live Zoom, and I like live sessions as well too. And the prices were comparable, but I felt like, well, that's a lot to have to cram into my memory in 2 days. And they were taught on a Tuesday and a Thursday in the same week for 4 hours each of the days. And so the materials were probably comparable, but that wasn't the right format for me. This was the right format for me to take 2-hour sessions on 5 consecutive weeks, and on the same day of each of those 5 consecutive weeks, and then schedule the exam. And so for price comparability, they were comparable, but that format had a lot more logistics that I would have had to have handled, and I didn't think it was the right format for me. As far as free materials, if you search, there isn't a lot. You can download some PDFs here and there, but I looked for free quizzes and free tests and prep tests and example tests, and the only thing I was able to find was something from U.S. Green Business Council, which is a 30-question free test that you could take online. And that's not really enough, 30 questions to give you a really good grounding in what some of the depth of this exam would be. And sure, you can find that now and you can download that and take that for free and get a PDF and get a score and all that. But, you know, the questions that GBRI, not only is it domain quizzes of about 20 to 30 questions in each domain, but it's also the 3 mock exams, which, you know, again, that was my formula for success. Take the domain quizzes until I got 100% on each one, as you can retake them, and then look at the answers explained, which is very valuable too. And I don't think that the free quizzes that you find online have answers explained either. So that's an important point as well. And then take the 3 GBRI mock exams until you get a 90% or better. And at that point, you're ready to go in and pass the WELL AP exam at Prometric. So hopefully that was
That's a great answer, Doug. I think, yeah, you know, it all really depends on a person's preference. Some may prefer to do something, you know, that is not going to cost them anything. Some may prefer to do something in person or online. But I agree, you know, a lot of what we have heard from past users is that the mock exams with the answer explanations and the practice quizzes, those are things that they go through and take over and over and over again. And those really help. They really are very similar to the questions they see on the exam. And so it kind of gets their mind into that mindset that they need whenever they go to take the actual exam. So I think that's a great answer. Let's see, okay, and so I see I did have a question. I think it was just sent directly to me. They're asking about so we do offer a discount for folks. If you have 2 people that are signing up at the same time, you are eligible to receive a discount for both individuals on your registration. So I'm going to go ahead and include my email in the chat. And so if you want to just send me an email, I can go ahead and make sure that you are all set up to take advantage of that discount. So let me do that. All right, and I don't see any other questions. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to enter them. Not, then I guess we can wrap up. I don't know, Doug, if you had anything else y'all wanted to add or.
Well, I apologize for my camera flicker. I have to fix that. I'll fix that before next week's session. And I really don't know what caused it. It doesn't seem to be any better, does it, at this point?
It just is very random. It's like sometimes it doesn't do it. So it's kind of strange. It's just like randomly does it. And
maybe there's a subliminal message in there.
you know, Doug, this isn't the first time though we've gone live with somebody who's done Zoom sessions tons and tons of times, and for some reason it doesn't want to work. Yeah. So it's not just you. I think it's us or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just close by saying, you know, from my perspective, the live sessions are far more preferable than recorded sessions. And recorded sessions are great because you could play them again and again. But getting the immediate feedback and the hand holding and the accountability is, I think, the way forward for success. Knowing that, you know, there's going to be 8 or 9 or 12 test takers from noon to 12 Eastern time in New York every Thursday. That's your team. That's your success team, right? Knowing that they're going to be there, knowing that you're all in the same position. You come from slightly different backgrounds, but you're all learning material that might be new or might be a refresher to some, but you're all having a common goal is to finish this course and sit for the exam and pass the exam in the first try. And that really, if you're a self-studier, that's fine. But I think it's hard to study all this material on your own and know what to highlight with a highlighter and know what not to highlight with a highlighter. We do it for you. We highlight it for you. And that's really useful because there's so much material and you think 5 weeks, that's not a lot of time to cover all this material. How about 2 days? When I wanted to do a 2-day course, I felt that that just was too short. So, you know, it's hard to self-study for something unless you're incredibly diligent and incredibly disciplined and you know exactly how to drill down to important concepts. And I don't think you can really know that unless you have somebody guiding you. And so this program, this course does that for you and gives you the accountability and the group accountability that I think is, you know, really nice to be able to pass and go forward. Are you showing an example of the highlighting?
Yeah, so I just wanted to show, so Doug mentioned the highlighted. We do in the course material, we have just the standard unedited version. And then we also have the version which we have actually gone through and highlighted, like Doug mentioned. And so we have gone through and highlighted things that we feel are important for you to know for your actual exam, because there is 365 pages of material. So we go through and we highlight the important information for you all. And so that kind of helps you to better guide what you need to be focusing on. So that is also another little added bonus that we have included as well.
There's a question about how many hours of study is required. There's that question per week, right? Well, I mean, Carolina, what was your experience?
Well, in my case, I used to have a very, very busy schedule with kids and the house and the profession, which is I'm an architect. So these live sessions helped me to focus for those 2 hours on just on well, and I retain much more than doing on my own. So 2 hours on Thursday and 30 minutes each day just to go through what I've already read or what to read for the previous class. For me, it was super helpful. And one of the things I appreciate a lot from Jesslyn and Felicia was the roadmap. I actually printed the roadmap and put it on my desk. Yes, that one. And just, you know, just checking on what I've already read, how many pages everything was, how much it will take me. And just by checking, I did a lot of more advanced study than do it on my own. Because when I do things on my own, I just neglect that. I keep, you know, procrastinating it until it's too late. And in 1 week, I have to read everything because I already paid for the exam and I have to sit for it. So for me, GBRI was very, very helpful in that case. Just, you know, 2 hours for during the week for the class and 30 minutes in days. And there's a question that I actually was wanting to answer. Sandy says that she's a manufacturer's rep for building materials. You will see that well, focus a lot on materials, on air quality, on how it impacts the well-being of the occupants of the building and the building itself. So you will be able to focus on that point when selling whatever your materials will be, and even advising the manufacturers what to sell, what not to sell, or how to focus on how to sell it. That will be, because one of the main points on well, as much as LEED, is to change the market of what we are using on our buildings. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think it did. Great answer. And I also saw another one asking how you apply well as an architect. So do you have any thing you would like to share there?
well, it comes naturally, really. Like nowadays, whenever you are designing or whenever you are building, you just don't think just on space. You focus on the person. You focus on what they are going to do with that building and how you want that person to spend that 90% of their lifetime in that space. So it's not just putting plants or painting with light colors. Having a well AP give you entitles you and gives you more foundation on all the suggestions you make to a client on how to design their offices or how to design their houses. And they really appreciate that from because your point of view is more related with well-being and health of the building and durability of the building as well.
Good answer. There any other questions that anybody may have? We have some time if y'all have any questions, so please feel free to answer them. So we had, can well be applied or be useful for real estate buildings, and how can it be, how can it benefit investors? Or if y'all want to take a stab at that.
Well, I'm not on the real estate side, so,
yeah.
nor am I on the investment side, but I would imagine you're asking if a building has met and passed well certification at a certain level, it has more value. And, you know, that value is directly measurable, because if it's a well gold or platinum, then that's really, those are the highest standards for building wellness and across of all the domains that we talked about. So there's some value in when the building is transacted or sold or leased, for the occupants to know this, that it's an environment. It's not going to be a sick building, number one. It's not going to be a building that needs a lot of, you know, retrofit for air or ducting or HVAC or plumbing, that it's already met and passed all of those standards. So there's value, there's a lot of inherent value in that, I would think. Want to add anything, Carolina?
Well, yes. Will definitely be useful in real estate, because whenever you have a building that has been certified and you want more tenants for that building, people will go. I mean, if you have two buildings, one that has been certified and one that is just a regular office building, they will definitely go to one that has been certified well, because with that you assure yourself of productivity of your own people. It will assure you better productivity. People will forgot the word in English, I'm sorry, but they will get less sick, so they will show to the office more often. I'm sure there's a word for that. So that's what a company wants. I have 3 success cases. One is GSK, and one is one is a bank that I cannot name. And they have been, one has decided to make a portfolio of all the offices on well, because they've been realizing that offices that are certified are way better on productivity of their employers, for sure. So it's great.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know we see lots of research that has been put out by IWBI referring to just healthier people, happier people within the building. And so I think it definitely, that productivity of the workers tends to increase whenever they're happier and healthier. So
yeah.
So we have a question. So someone is based out of Dubai, and they're wondering if there are any other sessions planned in this time zone. Are you referring to in the Eastern time zone or in your time zone? I'm wondering. Because we will have more sessions throughout the year planned for our Eastern time zone. In the okay, so Dubai time zone, I don't think we currently have anything planned. However, we are always, if there is interest there, we are always happy to look into that as an option. And so that is something that we can definitely explore. At this time, though, we do not have anything planned for that. Any other questions?
Nice to see questions coming from people in, building material supply, real estate, architecture. This is terrific, really.
Seems like we have a diverse crowd. We should have actually at the beginning asked where everybody was from and what fields they were in. We missed that opportunity there. Yeah, so for the roadmap, this roadmap, once you have signed up for the exam prep material, that is something that is included here. And it is actually a PDF that you can download. So I will share the link again to the exam prep material, and that will be available listed there under the roadmap.
So someone asked before, I just want to add that one more, that one thing that I found very useful about the GBRI is that the WhatsApp group has actually given me the chance to answer questions or answer my doubts at the moment, because whenever I had a doubt, I asked on the WhatsApp, and maybe someone already read that material, or I had Jesslyn or Felicia already online answering. And when the time frame, because by the time I took the exam, I was in Argentina, so it was another time, it was another hour. I asked online on the blog, on the GBRI blog, and Jesslyn will answer back at midnight, at my midnight. So the next morning I had the answer. So I found it so wonderful that everyone, it's like everyone was working 24/7 for me, because I asked at any time, I asked at midnight, and by the morning I had already an answer. That was great. I had, yeah, I found that very useful.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like we work around the clock, but we really don't. But we always, you know, with WhatsApp being linked to our phones, it's hard whenever you see the message come through to just not respond. So.
On that group, I remember having Easy, who was in Puerto Rico, and there was another girl from Australia, and I had you guys, Doug, Felicia, and Jesslyn. So whenever I asked a question, someone would answer. It doesn't matter what time it was. If it was 2 a.m. my time or 3 a.m., someone on the other side of the world will answer back. And that was great.
Yeah, that's the nice thing. It's a diverse group of people that all come together.
I think we were answering questions like when sitting in the parking lot ready to take the exam. So at the last minute.
Yeah.
At least I was with Lisa.
Lisa, I remember Lisa too, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know if y'all see any questions coming through. I know I've had a couple of people have to drop off for other things. So if anybody has any last minute questions, please feel free to answer those. We can stay on here for maybe another minute or two or whatever, but please feel free to answer those in your chat.
And Felicia, please feel free to add me to the WhatsApp group again. I think because I've changed my phone number, I'm not in there anymore.
Oh, yes, of course.
Um,
I will add you. I will add you today. Yes, of course.
So I can answer any question that comes.
Yeah, you were just saying you were there to answer questions. So we got to make
Yeah.
sure you're back in there.
Well, back then I was there to ask them.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think anybody else has any questions. So y'all ready to wrap up today's session? Doug, yeah.
Yep. I look forward to seeing everybody in week 2 for air, water, and well certification domain training.
All righty. We'll see you all next week. Thank y'all so much for joining.
See you
Thank
all
you.
next week.